Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, we're another spooky movie episode of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who's in a weird CGI movie with me tonight?
This is Joe Butler, and man, I took this virus. I hope nothing bad happens to me.
This is Blair Farrell from comicbookvideogames.com, and I also own over 50 non-pirated DVDs.
I forgot about that. So we're here to talk about a CGI movie that I had never seen before, Resident Evil Damnation, that came out in 2012. Oh, damn.
This movie was cross-promoted with the Resident Evil 6 game, and I believe maybe even one of the live-action movies, too, because this was, I think, the good year where Capcom chat out a bunch of Resident Evil stuff.
Good year?
I like Resident Evil.
See, I do, too, but this was like... Because it was someone on Twitter the other day, and they were talking about how come Capcom hasn't done anything with Resident Evil lately, as if they haven't put out, like, Resident Evil 4, like, 2 months ago. And someone was like, well, what about this time when they had, like, Operation Raccoon City and all these other games? I'm like, those were the dark times.
Yeah, this is part of the dark timeline.
I like that stupid game.
I did, too. It's okay.
I don't think my review was very fond of it when we covered it on the show years ago, but yeah.
It's a good game if you have all four friends playing. If you're playing by yourself or with people randos, you're basically screwed.
I played by myself, but yeah. So I have heard things about this movie. I've seen Resident Evil Degeneration. We also covered on the show a long fucking time ago, and I actually bought that movie the day it came out on DVD. I worked at Target at the time. When this came out in 2012, I just didn't give a shit. Like, I completely skipped it. I never got around to it. I think about a year or 2 years ago, I bought a Blu-ray collection of all three movies for like $15 on Amazon, and I've been meaning to watch this for the first time, but I always skipped it. I was also confused whenever I saw this cover. I always had thought until I started watching this that was Leon and Chris on the cover. That is not Chris on the cover. That is a guy named Buddy, apparently.
Yeah, this is I remember liking this movie, and I still kind of did, but this is part of the weaker ones because this one is mainly Leon focused. Because at least with Damnation, you have, or not Damnation, Degeneration, you at least have Leon and Claire, and that's like the first time they've seen each other in years, which is interesting. And then the next one, which is the next one in the CGI series, you have Leon, Chris, and surprisingly Rebecca.
Yeah, I was also surprised that, again, I really thought Chris was on the cover of this game and this movie. And this movie is canon, so the RE series timeline takes place between Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6. But it really feels like a sequel to 4 in the grand scheme of it, because it is such a Leon-focused story.
Ada.
That too.
To me, it felt like a whole bunch of nothing.
That's fair.
Because in watching this, because one of the worst things you can do for a movie, and this is like a cardinal sin for this one, is I turned it on, and full disclosure, I was not looking forward to it, but I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll like it this time around because I actually don't remember it. But then the opening is just talking about here's the Soviet Union and this broke up into this and the ongoing thing between the blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, you've already lost me. Like, beginning of Resident Evil 1, it's like cops go to Haunted Mansion. Cool. Resident Evil 2, people end up in police station, must get out. 3, must get out of city. And this is like, well, see, the political aspects of the Slav Republic compared to the rebels of the people who are trying to do this. And my eyes glaze over and started reaching for the old phone, I won't lie.
I watched this on Tuesday, recording this on Friday night, so I don't remember a whole lot of this movie. I also am suffering pink eye, so I was sitting at home. I called in that day because I could not stare at my computer screen. I'm like, well, I'll sit here and just watch TV in the dark, because what else are you going to do when you can't, when your eye hurts? I was watching this movie, and it was entertaining enough. I mean, I don't think I messed with my phone too much, but that also could have been pain. So
it just, because when I think these are meant to, like, they are quote unquote canon, but it's also, they can't really do much because they still have to play within the grander Resident Evil story. And when I think about this, like Degeneration, like you said, it was the first time we had seen Leon and Claire together since 1998. And then, yeah, Allison Court was back, so that was awesome. And then at the end, it kind of linked into 5 because whatever, I think it was a Curtis Miller or something, some guy named Curtis in an airport, and they get a part of his talent and it's put into a thing that says like Tricell. And you're just like, oh, that's the guys from Resident Evil 5. So that kind of segued really nice into Resident Evil 5. Now, granted, Resident Evil 6 is a pile of nonsense, but like the most this does with Resident Evil 6 is there's like some gameplay footage during the credits. Like you don't get, this doesn't add on anything to 6 if you watch it.
No. I disagree. There is one very specific line of dialogue that helps RE6, and it genuinely, people forget about it, and it's pissed people off for years. But we'll get there when we get there. I mean, I can say it now. It's not really spoilers for the movie or anything.
That doesn't matter.
This confirms Leon and Ada fuck.
Oh, because the comment she makes about that one night or something?
Yeah, there's one night that they were in France and they boned. So if anyone complains about it, yes, Leon has had sex. He has had sex with Ada. So that
complain about that, like
weird people. But this explains why he's like Ada in 6 because they had their moment. So
okay, that's cool. So I have one random complaint. So before we did this, I couldn't remember much. So I'm like, okay, earlier today I'm looking up YouTube videos, and I only found 2 reviews for this. There's not much on YouTube of people reviewing this movie for some reason. So now there's gonna be 3. Woo, one's audio only. So I was watching the review, and I watched one. I'm like, all right, cool. Just trying to get kind of remembering what the hell I watched, and kind of see what other people think. And this guy starts going into how the opening is like, oh, this is saying how capitalism is bad, and they're trying to feed me this my socialism. I'm like, what the fuck? What? And he's like, oh, and woman president. Oh, and look how that failed. I'm like, the fuck? I'm like, how did you get any? Like, sure, yes, there's a female president. Yes, they're having a rebellion, but it's also a Soviet Union country. They've had many rebellions. I mean, that's not, it was just to me like, I consider myself a liberal guy, but like, I was like, how the hell, this is not a political movie really. This is just it's a backdrop to they have monsters killing each other. Okay. Like, I was like, really? That's where you start this? So I had to make my rant. So I was irritated. It really bothered me. I'm like, this is not that kind of movie.
Boy, they were a lot more passionate about this than when I was.
I mean, it was just like really, it was just so stupid. It was like, I didn't even see that when I watched this movie. I mean, you see, the whole idea that you have this rebel army is going against the government because the government is, you see the government is not the best government. The frickin' underneath their version of White House, they have frickin' biological weapons. So, that's good enough right there.
See, whoever like this guy is, they make an excellent point because history has proven that white male leaders have never made a mistake ever. Where you have a flawless track record. I don't know what the argument is.
That's what he was going for. And he made a comment about how women can't do stuff, or like, I'm like, what? Like, how did you get this? Like, I'm like, one, she's a badass in this too. The feet. Well, also almost everybody's a villain because the rebels are a villain and the government's a villain. In my opinion, in this movie, everyone's bad except for Leon. So
sure.
The rebels. It's because they're using freaking biological weapons against an army, and their whole idea is that they're using Las Plagas from Resident Evil 4.
See, that's something that I wanted to bring up because that's the only part where I went from flatline to a little bit of a blip. So Leonardo DiCaprio, Leon Kennedy in this, who has absolutely no personality, and the only lines are like stupid one-liners that are worse than Resident Evil 4. Like,
funny though.
Are they? Like, he makes one line about wanting breakfast, and I was like, what are you, like Barry Allen from Justice League? Like, so he confidently tells someone, oh, if you're infected with the Las Plagas, you have to get paralyzed in order for it not to control you. You were infected with the Las Plagas parasite, and you can walk.
Wait, did they make a comment about that you have to be paralyzed?
Yeah, he's like, you have to kill them or like sever the spinal column, which is why in the end the guy is like pushing himself up the hill in the wheelchair, and it's like, no, I'm pretty sure that there's a laser that can get the thing out of people because you use it on yourself, and it was a bonus weapon in Resident Evil 4 on PS2.
The laser that was just blown up on the island that they left.
Yeah, I mean, they can reverse engineer. He like brings like notes or whatever. Like this universe is filled with like nonsense like that.
Yeah.
I did not catch that. So that's why in the very end, Buddy's in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that's what he did. He shoots him and cripples him. So that's dumb. Wow, you just lowered this movie.
Oh, that was possible?
That's impressive, Blair. Okay. Wow. This is even dumber than I thought it was.
I will try to rehype the movie back up. It's not going to help a lot though. Anyways, hour and a half movie. Leon's your typical military man. He's brought in here because he basically is told that you work for the government. You either get told do this or we're going to set off the bomb in your brain. So Leon's there because maybe they have bioweapons. They're not sure, and then he gets jumped by two random guys and an old man.
See that's the thing about this is that he's there under vague circumstances. And if he wasn't there, it would make no difference. It's just like we have to have this guy here because we have to have one of the core people. And I'm pretty sure they have like statistics somewhere that say Leon is the most popular Resident Evil character.
The other thing too is it's also Leon because they add Ada. And I feel like it had to be Leon because if they had been Chris, which it makes more sense if they had been Chris, because Chris is the BSA guy and the BSA technically does work for the government currently, but then that you destroy the whole like technically Chris doesn't meet Ada until RE6 in that moment where she kills his whole team and that's why he holds a grudge. So the only man for the job currently is Leon or maybe Rebecca.
Well, they could have wrote like Claire was there working for some
Tricell.
Yeah, like
That's
anything. It could have been anyone. It's just like the circumstances that get that character there and just like the overly convoluted setup. Like it just, and this is the thing about Resident Evil of this era and why it just made me so happy that Resident Evil 7 exists because there's nothing that lowers the tension in the kind of Resident Evil 4, 5, 6 than the main protagonist treating a liquor like another day at the office. like Leon fighting a liquor is like me being like, oh man, the copier's jammed again. It's like, oh, it's one of these things. Like,
Okay, that's fair.
These people
he doesn't. It's like no big deal that he's got to fight multiple liquors in this movie.
Yeah, and like everyone just feels like the animation is really stiff. Everyone moves with no weight and they feel plasticky and invisible. Like at the end with the tyrant looks pretty cool. But again, he just sees it and it's like, oh man, one of these things. Oh, Mondays, am I right?
He's seen like one tyrant technically in his whole life. And he sees like another one. He's like,
It's probably seen like 50 million because like in the Resident Evil universe, like goopy biological weapons are more common than nuclear weapons.
And I want to make a joke about that because it's insanely silly because we get to the point. I'm trying to at least touch bases through the points of the movie. Leon meets these guys who are like, I think it's established that they're like the only they're like the last three of the rebel group that exists.
Oh, there's a few more.
Maybe? I'm not.
We meet a couple in the church.
Oh yeah, it's a church scene that's also in 6 for some reason. But
there's not a lot of like rebels.
I can tell
they're losing. That's why they're resorting to using the liquors, but using the liquor, I mean, you have to ingest Las Plagas essentially, or you shoot one up, which is like the same one that shot. Okay, now I'm also going to second what Blair said because I was just thinking about the gun they used, like the same gun you use in 4 that they didn't. Fucking bullshit. Wow.
But they used.
Blair was right.
The Las Plagas, like when they put Leon, when Leon gets it in 4, they just put it in a syringe. But I guess in 5, they have the ones that they violently shove down people's mouths. Like, why do they think it's a better version? It's like, oh yeah, we can carry like 50 of these in like my pocket and just put them in a needle. No, let's just carry one and just violently shove it down people's throats.
I haven't played 5 in so long that I don't remember much about 5. I just know the one time when you see one of the people open their mouths and the way it opened up did look like the stuff from 5, from what I vaguely remember.
So that, and there's lots of 4 with like the head exploding and the stuff coming up too.
Yeah, that's what I did like that little thing when the head does explode and it looks like the stuff from 4. I'm like, oh, that is cool.
So the weird part about this is, and I don't know, it's whatever because it's a Resident Evil movie. They always play fast and loose with how viruses work because it's established that they use the Las Plagas, but I'm 90% sure the Las Plagas is just the name from 4 because the one in 5 is completely different because what was it? Wesker made it differently because in 5 it can be spread out through by simply pulling a piece of it out of someone who's infected and then putting it in someone who isn't, as opposed to 4 where you have to. The reason why everyone's infected is because they're slowly injecting everyone in the town. And the reason why Leon takes 24 hours to become infected in 4 is because, and then as opposed to the movie where in the movie it takes these guys less than 12 hours to become infected, is because they shoot Leon up with an egg, and then the ones they use in this 1 and 5 are actual virus thingamajigs.
See, that's what in this talking about this is why it just it doesn't work, and why this era, the 4, 5, and 6, the action, because it's more so 5 and 6, because 4 very well establishes what its biological threat is for the most part, not so much how they made the El Gigantes and all the monsters and everything, but the purity of the T virus is this thing gets out, you turn into a zombie. That's how it works. It's just so simple and glorious, and this is well, it's this thing crossed with this thing and the whatever, and now it does this. It's okay, I guess that's how it works.
It is how it works.
Yeah, this one is kind of weird how they do it, and I also thought it was weird that the only BOWs that they're using are just lickers. There's no hunters. There's nothing else but lickers.
So my idea from that is lickers were never the perfect BOW. They're inside out. They've got brain showing, things like that, and that's why the rebels are using it, because they're poor. They're rebelling. That's the only thing that they can afford. That's why they have. I mean, technically, they're injecting themselves with the plagas, and then I think one thing you're supposed to get is everyone that they see and everyone in town is supposed to be that the rebels were infecting themselves and the virus was killing them quicker. So it's oh, well, Bill's done. Jim, infect yourself with the virus. We can kill more people. Okay. All right. Someone go pull straws to see who's after Jim in case we're still losing. And it's just that they're poor, so they get a shit virus.
Okay. Or the idea that to show how they're fighting for their country, and it also reminded me of a Star Trek Next Generation episode where they're using a warp technology to phase in and out that can't be traced, but they interdimensional, so it's killing them. That's kind of what it made me think of too. Is because they want their freedom so much from this country that they're willing to just sacrifice themselves to win the fight.
Kind of thinking about, you basically established that the liquor is the AK-47 of the Resident Evil universe.
It is.
It is kind of impressive that they can control it through injecting yourself with a virus. And it is cooler idea to inject yourself with Las Plagas than to carry around a staff. Yeah, I'll take that.
That doesn't make a lot of sense, but they also retcon that in the remake, Mike. So
which I have not played yet.
Yeah, when I think very minor spoilers, but it's cool. Whenever they take off Sadler's hood, his whole back head and back are just a big ass plaga. Okay. I do look forward to playing the remake at some point. It's great. I haven't gotten there yet. It's great. I love it.
There was some cool stuff in this movie, and if I wasn't in pain, I wasn't bored. I would say I wanted to watch this again just because but I didn't have time. I was just more it does go quick. There's a couple scenes, one scene that kind of stood out to me early on, when they infect one of the soldiers with the Las Plagas, and they just show it, shove it into his mouth, and then he's pretty much all fucked up. It's just the one thing that really bothers me now is what Blair said, is that they're oh yeah, you got to paralyze you, but I don't know, that bothers me a lot now. But there were some cool aspects to this movie. It is cool to see the town overrun. I think I would have rather had zombies versus Las Plagas, because I really like the T virus and zombies. I'm not the biggest fan of the infected as we get more in 4, 5, and 6. I think 6 is infected too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a mix of zombies and Plagas people.
I haven't played 6 in so long. I really don't remember it well.
It's funny you say this movie is short, but to me it honestly felt like it was 10 hours.
Oh.
I kept checking the time and I was oh my god, there's so much left of this, and the thing, there's almost it's mostly just these new characters, and I made the joke at the top because they have this, who is the guy who's obsessed with American culture? Is that Buddy?
JD.
That's JD. Okay.
JD, yeah.
He has 50 movies, not pirated.
The most stock generic, like quote unquote European who loves American culture. It's almost like they're trying to do like discount Nick Frost from like Hot Fuzz or something. Where it's like, oh man, guns are great. Oh, look at this amazing bulletproof vest, buddy.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah, and it's like I'm flatlined on the plight of these people, and like we all know Leon isn't gonna die, so there's no tension, and I'm not controlling any of this. So like there's no stakes, and I don't know.
I mean, it was still like, for me, it was still entertaining. It was just the villains I felt were like, they tried to make you feel for the rebels, where they're like, he was just in love with his, he was going to get married to this teacher, and then she died, so he picked up a gun and started fighting. And it's just like, okay, fine, they're fighting for your country because the government is bad, but like, you're just as bad at this point. Like, you're killing your own people. I don't know. It takes it away from being like, we're not feeling for the rebels in this case. That's how I
there's
took
only
it.
like
It just
3
didn't. I mean, I thought Buddy for sure was going to get killed. Like, and then when you get to the ending of this and you see him in a wheelchair, I'm like, he shouldn't have survived. He's not a good person. Like, he committed mass murders and stuff. Like,
there's another throwaway line. The reason why he needed to survive.
What's that?
Whenever I think it's when he's like, it's at the end of the movie when he's dying. I think basically.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they want him to survive, and they're okay with him being paralyzed because he's basically can go out and tell people like, oh yeah, no, the president was evil, and she also uses bioweapons and stuff like that. So
I mean, does 6 deal a lot with bioweapons? Like, I don't remember 6 very well.
Yeah, there's like the C virus or something, and there's
what year did 6 come out?
2021, or like the year like it takes place in, or the year it came out?
No, the year it actually came out.
It came out the same year this movie, so 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's probably when I played it, so that's why I don't remember any of this. Or any of 6.
This Resident Evil, what was the live action one?
One of the Mia Jovovich ones.
Retribution, that was the 5th one, and Resident Evil 6. And for me, I'm kind of back there now, and I envy the people who just never left, and they're perhaps the true fans, because I really love Resident Evil, but after 5, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, and then once all the spin-offs started happening, and these things, and 6, I was just kind of done. I was like, I'm kind of checked out, this is not for me anymore. So when this came around, I think I may have rented it or something. I can't remember. I didn't buy it, but like Mike said, like when Degeneration came out, I was so excited for 5 because like, oh, it's a follow up to 4, and Chris is back, and what's like Wesker is going to be here, and like Degeneration was like this animated film, and Claire is back, and Leon's together, so it's like a Resident Evil 2 reunion. So like when this came around, I was like, I might get around to it.
Funny enough.
I would have watched this on streaming for sure had it been like on Netflix or something back in 2012 or 2013.
Yeah.
I had no interest in buying it, that's for sure. I just didn't care enough.
I want to very much say that I think I pirated the shit out of these whenever they came out because they were hard to find, and I don't even think anyone was streaming it. Like, I think you actually had to go to like a movie store and buy it on DVD.
Yeah, I think I
still
probably
not
did
streaming
too, because like back then, I think it was just really Netflix.
Yeah, I want to say that's true.
Remember the good old days, huh? We just had one streaming service and not 20.
I will say one thing that I'm really excited for, going off topic for like half a second. Capcom had their big conference recently, and they did confirm that they are thinking about doing the spin-offs, which leads into hopefully I'm wrong timeline, which the next remake we're getting isn't going to be 5.
It should be Code Veronica.
No, because Code Veronica also goes into what I'm thinking of. I don't think we're going to get Code Veronica yet either. I think what they're going to do is they're going to have all the games involving Wesker come out in a row. So we're going to get a remake of 0, then 1, or reverse it and have like 0 as DLC. And then we're going to get Code Veronica and then 5. That way it'll show the beginnings and then the middle and the death of Wesker.
Okay.
See, a couple of years ago, I've been really excited about that. But now I'm just like, just give me Resident Evil 9. I'm really burnt out on remakes, and
I think we'll get 9. So I think we'll get 9 next, because we just got the remake of 4 after 8. So yeah, we'll get 9.
Yeah, it's the off year. It's like remake then new one, but although the way games are now, they take so long to make, so we might not get Resident Evil 5 until like the PS6 comes out, or Resident Evil 9 rather.
It's not that old. It came out in 360 PS3 era. We don't need a remake of 5 anyway.
Oh no,
not that great.
Other spoiler: 4 does tease we're getting a 5 remake.
Oh, okay. I'm not surprised.
Does it tease that we're getting a 5 remake, or does it just set up 5?
I would imagine we are. I think that game's still old enough to where it goes along too with I think they're going to start coming out with the co-op Resident Evil games as well. 6, a remake for 6 is pushing it, because I see people online talking about how like, oh, we're going to get a 5 and a 6 remake, and it's like 6 plays perfectly fine. There's no reason for that one.
6 isn't beloved either, so.
Yeah.
Thing is, they're not beloved, but those things sold millions of copies. Like Resident Evil 5 was like one of the best-selling ones, if I'm not mistaken, for a long time.
Pretty sure 6 was too, I think.
I think 6 sold well enough, but I mean, it's fine. 6's biggest issue is they gave the fans what they wanted, and then the fans bitch that they got what they wanted because it was too much. It's whatever. Speaking of 6, and hopping back on topic, am I the only one who saw the scene with Ada talking to the president? And I was like, man, this sure looks like a fan-made porno.
You're not wrong. I really like that scene when they fight, when Ada fights the president. And they're both fighting high heels. I'm like, well, that wouldn't work. But you know what? It was a badass scene. I don't care. But yeah, you are right. It did look like something not right out of like a porn.
It's just like one of those websites where it's just like on the side, and it's like, try not to like whatever. And it's just like Ada with like the slit in her blouse to show that like her bra or whatever. It just felt so plasticky and weightless. It's just like 2 action figures banging against one another.
It amused me and I enjoyed it. Like, I was entertained throughout this entire movie. Like, much of this movie is just from one big climax thing to another thing, and it's just kind of like, but I was entertained. So I can say that. I don't think highly of this movie at all, and I don't remember any of it. It's completely forgettable, but I was entertained. Like, one thing I do want to bring up, like, this movie starts off, the first half of it is much more kind of suspensey when you don't really understand what's happening, and, like, you think they're zombies, and you realize they're not zombies, and you have, like, that tension where they're, like, and then all of a sudden when you get, like, about halfway or near the end of this movie, it becomes, like, completely just, like, super action-y flick where they're fighting tyrants and lickers are everywhere.
He's not a zombie.
So, like,
argue for it.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, and like I said, I'd rather have zombies than Las Plagas. But one thing this movie did do that I thought was cool, the fact that it showed that tyrants were being, used by other people. Like, this government was able to afford to buy tyrants, essentially. You get reunited, you get to see Mr. X's again, but in this case where they were like multi-produced. So
here's a question, and I'm sure someone will get into it, or maybe it will be a nice little discussion. So 2004, there is no more Umbrella Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
So who the heck are making these things?
It's established that Tricell existed for a good while, and Umbrella had other like offshore companies, and also it's kind of goes into where I think it's established that the Umbrella America fell because we're the only ones that give a shit about. What was it that they said in Resident Evil 4 caused them to fall? Like their stock market crash or something?
Well, it was Wesker testifying if you played Umbrella Chronicles or something like that. It was because there's a big thing where he storms the base and Chris and Claire do, and then
yeah, it's Umbrella Chronicles.
Yeah, and I guess there's like a whole black market for these things, I suppose.
Well,
it also makes sense that like stuff got out and other companies are taking over what they were doing and getting their research.
Well,
because this would have been after the fall of Tricell.
Yes, but they also show that there are also scientists from Umbrella also survived. Like they all weren't blown up. Because I mean, technically in 4, Lewis used to work for Umbrella or something to that extent.
I think that's something. Yeah, that's something I have to think about because I remember that's in the remake.
Yeah, that's in the remake. That's why
it wasn't in the original.
And I thought 4, he was just a researcher hired by Sadler. He doesn't have any Umbrella connections.
Not in the original, no.
But I'm okay with that retcon.
Yeah, it's fine. But I think the other thing is that they established that there's other scientists who are working on who just do shit. I guess like technically Revelations also does that too, or Revelations reveals that there's like a whole other company collecting virus samples and mass producing them.
Yeah.
So I guess that happens too. And then 7 also teases another company as well.
Yeah, but they never say the name if I remember correctly.
The Connections.
The Connections.
So I'm okay with that. Like, I mean, it makes sense that like something fell apart and then other people take over. Like, that's not that far fetched.
So Umbrella's like the Gap, but they also have like a Banana Republic somewhere, just like.
Well, I mean, it just makes sense that like if your company fell, like some, especially at that point, some of your secrets would get out and get sold to other companies. And I'm guessing like Resident Evil at this point is supposed to be more of the world where the BOWs are. Because the whole idea is that he's being sent here because they're trying to make see if BOWs are being used in the war and then stop it. I guess so. The whole point, like what Leon is doing here. But
yes, that's it.
Okay. And then he's being called back in the beginning of the movie, then ignores them because America is trying to sign a deal with Russia. Or something like that is what's really going on. And doesn't Russia and America invade this country at the very end of this movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
They say like Hunnigan said that like because he turned off his phone, but then Hunnigan was like, "Oh, we're watching him the entire time," and then the Eagles come like in the Lord of the Rings and start blowing everything up.
I think, and then the other thing that's also weird that because if you watch this and you played 6, they still have not established who the fuck Ada's working for, and we're not even sure if she's even working for anyone, if she's just tying up loose ends.
Well, that's the whole rub with the Resident Evil series, and like I love me some dumb Resident Evil lore, but they're so afraid to pull on any of the threads that they make because then they have to stick to it. Like my biggest thing, like for example, like Code Veronica comes out, and then they put out Code Veronica X that has additional cutscenes. Like one of my favorite is the Chris and Wesker fight at the end in the submarine bay. Absolutely love it. But then they have the line of dialogue where Wesker says, "Yeah, we got the Veronica virus because we got it from Steve. Maybe they'll bring him back like they did with me." And I'm like, oh. That would be a great thing where Steve comes back as a villain and then Claire has to like unbrainwash him and then they get a happy ending. But no, Steve is still somewhere just getting pumped with Veronica virus or something. Like, I don't know.
Because they're Steve afraid. Was dead at the end of Code Veronica.
Well, he did die, but then Wesker just has this thing where it's like basically the only existing sample of Veronica is in his body. So I have the corpse in my submarine. Oh. And we're going to go get it from his body because that's the only remaining sample. And then he says something like, maybe they'll experiment and bring him back like they did me.
I should really play that game one day, huh?
Yeah, you should put it on a show that you have. It would be really great.
I did, actually. Since we talked last, I changed out the other one I was going to do and said, fucking put this one on. Put Code Veronica on. So I'm doing Code Veronica this year. It's going to be a lot of Resident Evil this Spooktober for people that are listening to everything we do.
Awesome.
A lot.
And then the other thing that I like about the other thing that because I want to backpedal it because it is probably it's part of the reason why I like this movie because I want to go into the two part. One is I like the idea of someone actually kicking Ada's ass because Ada's always shown off as this like perfect woman, I guess, and that she's so powerful no one can stop her. And this bitch doesn't even have a virus; she's just really skilled. And Ada is getting her ass kicked, and she basically does a thing where she pulls out, she hits, there's a decorative knife in there, and she grabs it, and she basically just does the whole, I'm going to swing this knife in a circle, and I'm going to walk towards you, and if you run into me, that's your fault. And, she still gets her ass kicked, and there's like an underground bunker or something. I don't know what the fuck of deal was that. Is the other idea you're supposed to get is that the government's been selling the Plagas to the rebels as well, maybe?
Either selling them, or they just had them anyway.
Because they have a whole hive. I didn't get what the fuck was up with that.
I mean, I think it's supposed to be where neither one is good in this case. Like, they're both bad people.
Yeah.
That's how I took it. I didn't think about it. I know she does mention the elders. I know there's something to do with oil, and that's why that they're rebelling because they weren't getting money for the land, or it's stupid shit like that.
Yeah, and if there's one franchise I wanted to touch on the machinations through geopolitics and the Bush era, it's Resident Evil.
Yeah, and then if the other thing, which there's one fight I'd love to see in the entire Resident Evil series, and we're never getting it unless they say they made knockoffs and they make those fight, is they have Lickers fighting a Mr. X, which is probably like the whole coolest segment in this whole fucking movie.
I did like them. I did like all the Mr. X stuff. I thought all that was really good, and to me it was really cool because I mean this kind of felt like Leon revisiting Resident Evil 2 because he's fighting Lickers again. He's fighting Mr. X's again, which he didn't deal with in 4. So kind of reminded me of that. So, I mean, I thought that was cool. I still love the fact that like they had like three of the. I think they had like 3 Mr. X's in that compound that they release.
I think they have more, but you see like 3 or 4.
That was cool to me. I really like that. And I was thinking at one point when he blows them up, I'm like, you know better than this, Leon. If you blow one up, it just becomes worse. Because remember, you dropped it in a fucking, like fiery thing back in Resident Evil 2 in the factory.
He did, didn't he? I don't remember that very well.
Yeah, but you always shoot him with a rocket launcher. That's how they always end. You get the multiple camera angles and they blow up.
Well, you see in the later on, because these are very different Mr. X's, because I think the one Leon fights in 2 is maybe 7 feet tall, and these are at least 10. And they have limiters around their body with their big trench coats.
I mean, this would also be 10 years, 20 years since the Raccoon incident?
Well, Raccoon's 98, and this series kind of plays out in real time.
Yeah, it's 2011 in this one, I believe, too.
Okay, so, I mean, yeah, that makes sense that technology would have improved at that point for what they were doing. I'll buy it.
Any other BOWs in Degeneration? I haven't seen it in a while.
If I remember correctly, it's just zombies. It's just the T-virus. I don't think there were any hunters. I don't think there were any lickers. It was just zombies from what I remember. But again, I haven't seen that movie in like 3 years. I was going to rewatch it for this episode just because, but then I was also worried that they would blend together. And I didn't care.
It's okay.
It wasn't streaming. Had it been streaming, I would have just put it on when I was doing other random things, but I'd have to pull out my Blu-ray and put it in my PS4, and I'm like, that's too much work. So.
Oh, this is so exhausting.
Hey, it's too much work when you're trying when you
put it
aren't
in the
using.
Thing. Oh.
I mean, I guess to be fair, I have a PS3 across from where I was sitting all day working, so I could have just put it in the PS3 because it's a Blu-ray player. But still, too much work. Got to be streaming. I put on my PC, run it in the background while I'm working. Otherwise, no go.
So, like as usual, I think this movie's okay. I remember Degeneration was being fine just because it was the first one. The next one, though, is my favorite one, and I can't wait to watch that one just because of how
I saw that one in theater.
Yeah.
Well, that was in theaters?
It was. I was shocked that it came to my neck of the woods, and I think there was like 3 people in the theater, and I was one of them. It just leans so heavily into the schlock that it's just incredible.
Yeah, I'm really excited because technically, in the time of recording this, I believe the Death Island movie has already leaked online too, and I'm probably going to watch that this weekend. And I've heard nothing but great things from that movie.
I forgot. I thought that was already out.
No, it's out in Japan.
That's what it feels like.
It came out in Japan, is what happened,
oh, okay.
and then like I said, I think it also came out in Japan on like DVD maybe. But someone's already put it online. It's not supposed to be here in America until the 25th, so.
Okay. I mean, of course, stuff goes online anyway. I mean, people who are going to buy this stuff are going to buy it either way. Like, I can tell you right now, I will pick it up at some random point in time. Well, because of this podcast. But
yeah,
plus I
will definitely rent it. I don't know if I want to spend the money because there's like peaks and valleys. Like I remember like the first one, and I think this one is super boring, and then the third one was so schlocky it's amazing, and then that Netflix series was just an emotional flatline. Like I think my heart rate actually slowed down watching that. Like I can't even remember what it was about.
I didn't watch it, but when I was reading about it takes place like earlier in the series.
Yeah, the reason why they made that is because they really want to show off. I want to say it's supposed to be that's why they made Death Island, is that movie was just kind of like a beta version to test out to see if they could make a movie with the RE engine. And they also decided to use they use the voice actor for Leon from the remake and Claire from the remake. But as far as I know, it's more boring than Degeneration, and like nothing happens in it and nothing matters. I don't even think there's like same thing. There's just zombies. There's no tyrants. There's no lickers. There's nothing.
Well, that's fine. I'm interested. I want to watch it at some point. I mean, I enjoy that these things. Oh, random thing that I want to bring up that I almost forgot. So when I was watching this in my sickened phase of pink eye, when I saw the honeybees, I was like, damn, that honeybee looks really familiar. And I couldn't figure out what the hell I had saw that bee before from. And I was thinking, and randomly it came up to me. A couple years ago, I went to a random little winery place in northern Wisconsin called Tommy Too High Wines. And the guy had some kind of like really good honey wine, and they had that same freaking bee picture on the bottles.
Okay.
I swear it's the same bee. And I'm assuming, like, I mean, again, they would just have like random shit they probably find on an image search and print it out and stick it on the bottles. I mean, it's that kind of place. But I'm pretty damn sure it was the same, same bee picture, which is, just a generic bee they probably found online too for this movie.
Stock image bee.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And it was just like, I swear it's the same picture. I don't have any bottles of that wine anymore because I drank it. But I was like, I'm pretty sure that's the same damn bee picture from like 2 years ago. So yeah, that's what I thought of when I saw that in my sickened phase. I think I watched this movie in 2 parts because I fell asleep.
That's fine.
Not because the movie was boring, because my eye hurt. So to be fair, it wasn't the movie. I was entertained. I mean, there were a couple cool scenes. I mean, seeing Lickers fight a Mr. X was not something I ever thought I would see, and I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. I mean, that was cool. So
also, fighting Mr. X with a tank is also pretty cool too.
Yeah, and that made sense. Like, that's the way to kill one of them is just by shooting in the face with a tank. Like, okay, I'll take it.
Yeah. The my favorite part, well, and I mean, you kind of tell towards the end, not just because it was over, but when they eviscerate the tyrant with the helicopter, and it's just meat on the ground, like it's just like the stumped leg. I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. I'm like, oh, I woke up for a little bit.
Yeah, it's just a really weird movie. I mean, it fits into the canon, but it's like completely unnecessary. And I think that's fine too. The fact that you don't need to watch this to understand anything going on with the games. It's just there if you want it.
It's like when a comic event comes out and it's like, oh, it's Spider-Verse, but then there's like a million spin-off series like Scarlet Spiders, and here's what Kane was doing in the sidelines whilst all the important stuff was happening over here. And you can read it if you want to get additional context, but if you don't read it, you're going to also be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Also, you get to listen to the sultry tones of sexy Matt Mercer.
He did do a good job as Leon in this. So I like that. There were some cool moments. I mean, there was some fun stuff that, being introduced more to Las Plagas stuff I like. Seeing Leon fight the president was kind of cool. I still prefer the porno fight with her and Ada, but still, fine. It really does look like something from a freaking weird ass porn. But no, and I like the idea of a government, having VOWs. I think that makes perfect sense. I like the idea of this, the idea you're having one of the governments that was separated from the Soviet Union back then being like, okay, here, in order to keep our dominance, we're gonna get VOW. I like that idea.
As Mike says that, the Resident Evil monkey paw curls on his desk because Mike still hasn't played 8 and does not know how that game ends.
No, I have not played 8. I played 7 once. I don't remember it very well, but no, I need to play it. 8's on my list to get to, but it's going to be a while still. But no, I mean, I'm a big Resident Evil fan in general.
Oh, yeah, I think it's great.
And this movie has been on my list to watch since 2012. I just never got around to it. I mean, sometimes stuff like this gets to the point where it's like I don't want to absorb it until I do it for this podcast because I want my initial experience to be for the show.
It's okay, Mike. You say that, and then whenever you get rid of the Dead Rising, we'll review the Dead Rising movies as well.
There's movies for Dead Rising?
The live action one.
Exclusive the Crackle, baby.
Oh. There you go. When you say Crackle, I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, there's Dead Space movies. I haven't covered those yet because I just don't care.
Those are really good, though. You should cover those.
Yeah, but then I gotta watch them.
Well, your wife likes horror movies. You used to watch a movie together.
Yeah, but she won't. I don't know if she'd care for anime. We didn't watch this. I knew she wouldn't have cared about this.
Wow.
She likes your live action horror movies. This isn't live action.
I wouldn't exactly call this a horror movie.
No,
that's fair too. Yeah, it's more.
She doesn't really care for the Resident Evil Mila Jovovich movies either, but those aren't really horror movies either. So
the first one is.
First one is. She liked the first one. We got to the third one, and then she was done, which I completely understand. This podcast also gotten the third one. We haven't been able to get it done yet, so I get it.
I don't know if the actor strike will affect this, but Ode Fair Carlos Oliveira himself is going to be in the next province over from where I live in October. I might have to go there.
You should if you can.
You should, and get him to sign your copy of the Resident Evil movies.
No, I want him getting sign my copy of Justice League Unlimited because he's so good as Dr. Fate.
Oh, but you should get him to sign your copy of The Mummy.
Oh, that's a good movie. Both of them. Too bad I never made a third one.
I was gonna say, yeah, they did, and it's like,
did,
oh, okay.
I just never seen it because they replaced the actress, so I was done.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that, but it's whatever.
Because she's fucking beautiful, and it's like you take her out, and I'm done.
She was probably smart enough to say, we don't need to make a third Mummy movie in 2008.
No, they did not. So, I agree.
So
Also, we count the Scorpion King in this, like the first Scorpion King. That was all right time.
I like Scorpion King. The weird way this movie ends too is that it's supposed to, because you see him rolling a wheelchair up a hill, which is funny. But I look at the Wikipedia and it's like, yeah, he's going back to he's rolling back to teach kids back in school. That's why there's kids running around. And I'm like, I didn't catch that movie. Thank you, Wikipedia, for explaining.
I didn't catch that either. I mean, he should have been. I think he should have been killed. Like when Leon, he's about to shoot himself, and I thought Leon shoots him. Instead, it's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna kill you instead. And then
Leon has some speech where he says something to the effect of, if you kill yourself, that's the easy way out. You have to basically suffer for your grief and try to atone for your sins. So then he just paralyzes him.
I thought that was stupid, though.
I guess he paralyzes him through a gunshot wound.
I mean, that would do it, yes, but
that's what Joker did.
Shut up.
Fair. Very fair, unfortunately. I don't know. I just thought it was stupid. It definitely lowered my appreciation of this movie after Blair pointed out that's what happened. Because I was very confused when I watched this. I'm like, why is he like? I thought he was dead. I was just confused, and then yeah.
And was that technically a mid-credits bit?
Yes.
Is there another credit scene?
No, I think it's just like the credits roll for a bit, and then it shows him just like wheeling up the hill.
And then we get the absolutely badass credit songs with clips to RE6 because the game's been out for like 6 months or something.
I mean, that's fair. People that would have bought this would have been all excited for RE6. I'll take it. I mean, I probably would have been one of those people all excited for RE6 at the time had I cared.
I played the demo for RE6 and I said, I will be happier with my $60. Thank you.
I went to the midnight release of RE6.
I bought it off GameFly for like $20 probably.
Yeah, so. My roommate and I, we decided, I can't remember when it was a few years after the fact, because I guess everyone bought it and then everyone traded it into EB Games. So we got a brand new copy for $10 and a used copy for $5. And we played System Link with 2 360s and 2 televisions, and that was like the best thing I can say about Resident Evil 6.
That sounds great, though.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, yeah, that Resident Evil 6 means a little bit to me because that's a game me and my husband played together when we first started dating. And even though it was been out for a while, but we played it together. And I just remember going to the midnight release because I was a young, bushy-eyed, like 18, 19-year-old, with a paycheck who all I was for like a little bit of rent and I could use the rest of it for I wanted to. But, now I am old and don't give a shit. And if like, the game releases at 11, okay, I'll buy it online and play it for an hour because I got work in the morning.
Yeah, I'm past like looking at the run times of the new Mission Impossible this week, and I'm like, 3 hours, guys, knocking off of these 3-hour movies. I'm so glad they stopped doing midnight releases, and they're like, oh yeah, you could see the new Spider-Man movie at 7:00 on Thursday. It's I love that. And I remember, and even speaking of this era, like it was like 2012, because like I'm assuming like our cinema has like reserved seating, but we bought tickets for the Avengers that year, and we actually had to get in line at like 6:00 in the evening for the midnight show to get like a good seat.
Oh,
yeah. And I was in full-on Captain America costume too, so I was like...
Okay, anything else that we should mention about this movie that we haven't said?
God, no.
That's fair.
We made it this long. It's a triumph.
Yes,
making a note here, huge success.
Oh, but I do want to bring up one comment, something that you had mentioned earlier when you were talking about Resident Evil 6. Back long time ago when this show first started, the first thing that this show had ever talked about in the episode that never got aired because they didn't record it was we talked about one day talking about Resident Evil 6 randomly, and I still have yet to replay it again. So I'm slowly getting there as I cover all the Resident Evil stuff in no real order.
You're kind of doing a decent order. It's fine.
I'm getting there. I'm trying to cover it all. We'll see. All right, let's go to Shelf Stacker Box. And let's start with the positive. Blair, what about you?
Oh, this is going on the shelf in a box that's going to be pushed in the corner and gather dust as I can't see myself ever watching this movie ever again.
Right. And what about you, Joe?
It's going in the stack. I thought this movie's okay, just for the most part. So if I ever watch this again, it's probably going to be like, hey, you want to watch the Resident Evil movies? Because on Fridays, we go through movies we've never seen. And at some point, I'm probably going to, because these things are usually like an hour long. So at some point, we're probably going to watch all the Resident Evil movies. And it's like, hey, second movie starting, because we watched Degeneration first. And it's like time for that edible to be eaten and hope it kicks in halfway through.
See, I'm glad we never did Degeneration because I'm going to break out into the Degeneration X theme from WWF really, really soon if someone says it one more time.
I mean, I did cover it, but with the old cast long before. That's actually the first horror movie episode we did was that movie.
Yes, horror.
So, yeah, but yeah, it's been a while. So this has been, and I'll go last. I was kind of torn originally before we started talking about it, and Blair pointed out a really dumb fact. This movie was going to go in the stack, but it's going in a box. I mean, I'm glad I watched it. I can now check it off in my box of bucket list things somewhere randomly. Like, I watched this movie, but I never need to see this again. Should I own it? Will I put it on? No, probably not. But am I glad I own it? Yeah, I am, because I own it. But yeah, no, it's stupid. It doesn't need to be rewatched, but I'm fine that it exists. And we will now be one of the few YouTube things that covered this movie. So,
awesome.
There's that. We'll be the longest on YouTube. You can say that. So, yeah, that's it. There's really not a lot to this. It's just one of those things that exists, and I'm not upset that it exists. You know, it's just that's really the only way to put it. I mean, it doesn't need to be there. It doesn't hurt anything by it existing. It's just there.
It makes for a nice trilogy now to be a quadrilogy.
Yeah, and is Vendetta better?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, it's way better.
Okay.
I love Vendetta so much.
Okay.
Except for one issue that I have with it, which, you know, if we get to it, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll get there at some point. I'm definitely looking forward to watching Vendetta because the whole reason why we did this is because I wanted to get through all three of these, and so okay, I'm looking forward to covering that one eventually. All right, and I think that's everything I need to say. Everything to say about this. And Blair, where can we find you at?
You can find me at comicbookvideogames.com. You can find me on various exhausting social media platforms by looking my name or Blarcade. I really hope that the social media wars end pretty soon. We all just pick a lane. That would be really great, wouldn't it be, guys?
You and Twitter dies soon?
No, we're gonna have to pay $10 to look at Blair's tweets on Twitter. That's what we want.
No
That's where
one's
it's getting.
paying $10 to see one of my tweets.
That's where it's going. That's my theory where it's going. So
No, Twitter's terrible. Like, I don't even... Random fact that you brought up now, so I'm mentioning on here. So I like to tweet certain things for this show, and every week, anyone who follows me on social media will know I always will post a thing like, oh, these are the upcoming episodes. Every time I post that on Twitter, it almost, for some reason, denies my tweets. It will not let me send that tweet with 3 images. It used to. My guess is, well, you're not verified. Twitter's
exceeded your limit.
I mean, Twitter's just... I don't even use Twitter. I mean, once in a while I post on Twitter, but like it's just useless now because he's made it to a point where if you don't pay for the service, don't even bother with it.
It was already the worst, and now it's just... Before recording this show, I saw 2 gotcha tweets by someone pretending to be 2 popular accounts, and I was like, if I didn't have to promote work that I do rather, I wouldn't be on here. Like, my life would be so much more richer. Well, I never would have probably met you guys, so maybe not.
No, he wouldn't.
Like,
we met because of...
Seabake.
Yes.
Because
I couldn't think of his name.
I'm the GoBots to Chris Baker's Transformers, and I am okay with that lifestyle.
It was you and a couple other people that he recommended I reach out to, and you're the main one that I ended up... Yeah. You're the one I talked to, and then we've been friends since.
4th tier, baby!
And I'm very glad I reached out to you. So, but yeah, no, Twitter sucks. I make the joke to myself, give no one else to hear me. The whole fact, like, you know, your phone can hear everything you say. So I'm like, well, no wonder my tweets don't get, disregarded. I make fun of Elon Musk too much in around my life. So he's like, oh, I hear you. Huh? Gonna disregard your tweets now.
I have a coworker who talks about her bunny, and now all of my things are 2 pictures of rabbits, so I'm okay.
Yeah, your phone hears everything you do.
Yeah.
That's not even like... There's been multiple times where I will say something, and then all of a sudden I start getting ads for the thing I just said. I'm like, yep, okay, that's fine, whatever. No one's come to arrest me yet, so I'm not too worried.
Oh, I know.
Phone's listening to what I say. So.
Googling, am I having a heart attack at 11 o'clock at night and getting defibrillator ads on Facebook the next morning?
Are you still alive? If not, here, buy this. This will help you out next time. Just pull it out randomly, and you start shocking yourself.
No, I know now that my phone's listening to me, so I'm gonna have a bunch of ads for the Resident Evil movie for like the next week.
Well, you're okay with that, though, I bet.
Yeah.
I thought that movie was already out.
I know.
Yeah.
Time has no meaning.
Yeah, it just says it came out in Mexico though, July 13th.
Oh,
So
spooky.
okay, it doesn't even have a U.S. release date on here on the wiki.
The spoiler is that it's not actually an island, it's a peninsula.
No.
Okay. I mean, hey, I'm happy that this stuff exists and that Resident Evil is doing more things.
I'm
that.
glad they're making movies because the movies are enough to be like, oh yeah, this is a goofy thing to show my friends who could show it to people who could get into the series.
Yeah. All right, and if you want to hear more Resident Evil, we've done a bunch on the show. You'll see links to all the Resident Evil episodes in the show notes. Plus, if you go on Podbean, just type in Resident Evil, and you'll pull up everything we've done. We're slowly covering the entire series, slowly, because I only seem to do it once a year. So, for the most part, so very slowly. But it's getting there, and you'll be getting plenty of Resident Evil this Spooktober, I'm sure, because I already got like 4 things planned. So there is that. All right, so definitely you can go find everything we do on Podbean. If you want to support the show, that we do have a Patreon. Go vote in our Patreon polls. We have one every month. You can help, so do that. We have a Discord if you want to chat with us. You can go join that. You'll see a link in the show notes. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I mean, I'm still there for now until Twitter just randomly kicks me off saying, oh, you insulted Elon Musk too much. Goodbye. So... And want to give a shout out to my awesome intro and outro courtesy of Helena at Hell Has Fury. Follow her on TikTok. And want to give a shout out to my buddy Bill Tucker, who started his own podcast, A Gamer Looks At 40. Definitely go check him out. You'll see a link in the show notes to his podcast. I think that's everything I need to say. So we will see you guys all next time. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Hey, guy.